Thank you very much to this reader who put this message in the chat room and asked me to look at it. So I'm going to read it, and it's quite a mouthful. It's going to take me a few minutes, and yeah, I might say a few things along the way. But anyway, it starts. I was fascinated and excited when I came across the theory of a world mud flood, especially as I could see the evidence of it all around me. But after a time, it became very confusing and never-ending evidence at the thing to go round and round in circles. I had, as I have now come to know, fallen into many of the rabbit holes laid down by this reality. Realization hit me when I encountered the memories of my Nan. She was in her late 90s. She lived out her final years of us, and I was old enough to listen and enjoy hearing about her life and the lives of her family long before I was born. Now, given her age, as she was something as going far back as about 200 years in verbal history with me, yet she never mentioned a world cataclysmic event such as a mud flood. If I am right, at least her grandparents would have been around at the time, and so would have experienced it to her. I am sure if she did, then she would have mentioned it to me at some point. As far as I know, it's not been written down anywhere reliable that it ever happened. Many families have kept family journals recording things like marriages and deaths that go back hundreds of years, and again, as far as I know, none of them recorded such an important event. As for a great reset happening, you would think that too would have been documented somewhere by one of the families, if not written down, then just handed down verbally, like tribes all around the world hand down such important stories. Yet I've heard nothing or come across any, I think that's writings or stories of the Great Reset or a world catastrophic such as the mud flood. After all, the Great Flood was recorded all around the world by people both verbally in storytelling and written. So after many years and listening to people smarter than yourself and warning me of this sort of thing, that this is one of the reality rabbit holes meant to send us, chasing us one way when we should be looking another way, and I include the Titarian world theory and of course the flat earth theory, the flatties, and many other totally plausible theories, all of which are very convincing but ultimately just misdirections. This reality will continue to amaze you in such giving you breadcrumbs, but they will lead you nowhere in giving the truth seekers positive and definitive proof in whatever it is they are searching, because that is what the public will want. And why do we want it? Because we know that we are being lied to at every turn, and we want to know why. I have a feeling we will not know the answer until the day we leave the avatar. I hope this gives you something to think on. This post is just one truth seeker giving his to you on what reality is, to another truth seeker with his conclusions. So I really hope that I'm not coming across as sounding pretentious. But no, I kind of very much understand that, because it's just so hard to... wouldn't it be nice if we could actually have said, yeah, that happened on that date, and we don't. We don't know. We don't know if everything has been abandoned for hundreds of years or a very short period of time, to be honest. But then they couldn't talk to each other the same in these days. You know, like they didn't have telephones, and maybe not everybody saw it, not every community saw it. So, you know, they just got on on their own, didn't they? And they might not have thought, oh, New York or London, I don't know, but very interesting, because I have the same thing that, when did it happen? What's your thoughts then, Nikki? What's your thoughts?
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Because you think, well, okay, that's 200 years, but it could have happened a couple of hundred years before that. They might not have mentioned it then.
Well, yeah. They wouldn't have known mud flood at the time, would they? Even at that time. Could have been buildings already buried. They wouldn't know what they were. Yeah.
But it also does, you know, like, I don't know. We're just living in this really weird reality. It's like,
don't forget this.
Please don't anybody think of any more star forts anymore. We don't need any more star forts to pop up. At this rate, they're going to be like, Nikki, there's one in my garden. You know, because there just seems to be so many of these things that just weren't there. They were not in our reality, and now they're everywhere. And it shows what an amazing place we were. But you can't say how old that is. But we've got canals. Canals were connected with them, and they said those were built in the 1700s. Then, what is it? Someone went click, and then it all happened, and we didn't know.
And it shut down.
But things did change in the 1800s. You know, there seemed to be, like I've said, it's like there was the League of Gentlemen. So they could have been sort of the early Victorians, or if you want to think about them in that era. And then what it is this big thing happened, and then you had the poor Victorians with less machinery, everything doesn't seem as good then, and then it does seem to be electric, and then that's swiped out because by the First World War that's gone as well, and then we're going back to it now.
Yes.
When we could have been we could be really, really green by now, all because of money.
Greed. Power.
Yeah, and it's a bit like, I don't know, it's a bit like everything that's under our feet. It's like, well, how many other sort of film sets are there beneath our feet? How many more are there? Like, what, is there going to be half a dozen put on top of us eventually?
Layer after layer.
I don't even understand how that happens, how a lot of it's under our feet.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's a bit crazy, isn't it?
Living on the dead.
It's not even just that, there's just so much under our feet. And actually, to be honest, you know, like, everything must have been living. That's what everybody's coming to the conclusion one way or other, even if it's crazy. And you think, that's great, isn't it? Everything was, except for the tarmac and plastic, everything was living. Anyway.
Just an illusion.
So I probably can't even send him I'll send him an answer in a minute, but I can't even send him the link to the video because you can't put videos out. I'll have to say I've done a video about your message.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to finish now. It's just a thank you very much for sending that message in, and that's quite a detailed message. So really, what's everybody's thoughts? Like, do you think there's been a mud flood? Do you not think there's been a mud flood? Do you think they're all rabbit holes?
Yeah, just leads into more, doesn't it? Then it stops.
It's a never ending.
It can only go so far.
Spider's web. Yeah. Because you get, like everybody thought that mountains were trees. And they're not. But they do look quite like trees, I have to say. Like, enormous great trees that you couldn't even imagine that they're that big. But in our reality that we've got now, the old trees, I tried to show Mickey in pictures and that some of them, they do grow up, but they don't keep going as if we're in Avalon and they're going to get 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet. They kind of plateau out, and then and some of the trees, they grow up a bit and then they start growing out. And the bark just gets bigger and bigger. They don't grow up, they just grow out.
What do mountains do?
Yeah, but not that high up. But anyway, we're going to finish now because life is such a mystery. Anyway, thank you very much for that message. And what's everybody's thoughts? Do everybody think there's been an actual... I mean, it's something. Do you know, it's almost like, if you could say what it was, And it's a bit like in Scotland they had a Megatron type gun like a long time ago, but it's probably more a cannon or something. But let's just imagine we're in like not Buck Rogers. What's the other one? Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon.
And they've now got a Megatron gun, and then they fire it, and it's like, that's it. We've ruined that town. It's now covered in rock.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's almost like this has happened. It's like, and put them out over there.
It's only a sound of vibration, isn't it? Get the right vibration.
And then also Floss, stop it. And then it's also like we're making it happen.
Yeah, we have vibrations, don't we?
Well, when we're going to finish in a second, but when we were kids, there was a program on the television, and what it was is this boy. Every time he went, so his house was near these stones, and they're actually based on Avebury. But every time he went to sleep, in his dream, he woke up and he looked out and he was going, the stones, they're getting closer. And then in his dream, he could draw things, and then amazingly, when he drew things, they actually started becoming reality. But it's a bit like, is that what we're doing? We can make all these things happen. It's just so bizarre that, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, Flossie, there was no such thing as star thoughts, and now there's so many. Just don't think of any more.
Well, the thing with star thoughts, they're hidden and they're far out at edge of sea. So, like I say, 30 years ago, I've never heard of star thoughts. Even when I was young, I never heard of star thoughts. But yeah, you've probably gone into one and never known it to be in that as you see it today. But you got ones that are this. Like a band.
I know, but we've done bits with castles now. When they're saying they're forts or castles and that, they probably weren't any of these things. They were just places where you would put all the goods that the people would need, and you would store it and look after them.
But also water.
So that's probably what a lot of the star forts were about. It was probably like, if you could have said Atlantis, that probably was it.
See, there's one where I watched where there was a star fort where they put fresh water at the bottom, and it's right next to the sea, and it's in the middle of nowhere. So it's producing fresh water where there is no water, and now you have seawater at one side and seawater at the other. It's surrounded by seawater, like Spitford.
You mean how would they know?
Because it.
Yeah, I mean, how do they get there? It's it's all part of. It's just amazing.
It's
all amazing because nothing is by chance with what's happened. When they made these things, the whole thing, everything is really precise. Some of it is magnificent and beautiful, and it still has water around it. It's like none of this was by accident. How would they be able to do this? You can't just say, hey, let's make a star fort. You get some bricks and we'll make one now.
You agree, Flossie, I know. She agrees.
It's because Mickey's not got her on his lap.
We'll have to wait.
Yeah, anyway, you don't make these things by accident.
No, but this is the history that we don't know nothing of. That has been hidden. It's like people would say we had a higher education, a higher understanding of where we lived.
It's a bit like the bit where we found out about pneumatic trains. It's like, it's not that maybe people think, well, I have heard of that before.
People just generate more further.
What it was probably, it sounds like now, this is where those League of Gentlemen ones are like. They had pneumatic trains, then came the tubes. Tubes came afterwards.
Got reused, opened up.
I mean, do you know what? I mean, in a way, Floss, stop it, Mickey, better pick her up. In a way, when you're down there in the tubes, Mickey, when you feel the tubes coming and going, you feel the suction and everything. Do you think they actually are still pneumatic? Because you can feel it, the suction and everything. I mean, you don't really want to be standing on the edge when one of those things coming. It was
No, so that's why you stand away from the platform.
Yeah, but you know what? They're not even going that fast, because I've watched videos about it. They're only going about 30 miles an hour, and it feels like you're going about 80. And how fast does it feel? And how fast does it feel?
Like, I don't know, it's weird.
Do you feel like you're going at 20 miles an hour? Do you feel like you're going more like 50, 60 miles? Like it feels...
It does feel 20 miles an hour, to be honest with you.
What, you don't think it's going 20 miles an hour?
No, it does feel 20 miles an hour. It's shite. It's like over the fuck up tube sort of shit in your head. Can you not do 50 or 60? You're not going to hit.
Of course, I think they feel like they go quite fast. But now you know.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
But now you know they don't.
But then it's like, you know, in the plane. You're doing it
Which tube line is the fastest?
I think you're doing 180 on the ground, but you ain't. You're doing 80. The car's catching up.
It says the Victoria line gets up to 62 miles an hour.
Oh, fucking hell.
What speed does a tube go? There you go. They're going to say it's 20 miles an hour. What is the fastest? How fast? What is the deepest? Let's have a quick look.
I don't fucking know.
Shh, I'm taping. Yes.
Hello.
Why is the tube so loud?
God knows.
Well, they're going to say that, aren't they? Maybe they're not going to say it's pneumatic. Well, I said to Mickey it was about 30 miles an hour. I've seen them do tests and it was about 30 miles an hour. But they're just not going as fast as you think they are.
Oh, it doesn't seem that.
Anyway, we'll just add this to the video.
Never been more than 20 for me. Maybe
Yeah.
30 on Northern Line.
Well, they feel faster to me when you've got the windows open and another tube goes past and it just sucks. Everything just feels fast and... Anyway,
It's like an
but it's not as fast as you think it is.
The tube tunnels now, they have, like, as they go through, there's holes above to release the pressure for the air to go up. Up through the street, you know? It's like the pressure gets dispersed, so it's not so like a sucking bottleneck or something, you know?
I know, but what it is they're calling them the tubes. They've taken our eye off of it so that we've always called them the tubes, but really they're still pneumatic trains. They were the next lot of pneumatic trains, but they call them tubes, and then we don't relate them back that probably 200 or 300 years before we had the pneumatic trains and all the tubes, and then you think, well, how would they be able to... we go on, honestly, we digress onto other things. But
it's like the trains have been in the ring, what's it? Oh, God, the Oval of London. Around, like, it's like Tartarian stations. And, like, one in Victoria, I think it's Paddington Station Railway Tube Station, where it's that classic Brooklyn style, you know, Tartarian style. And yet it's underground, but you couldn't see street light above, you know. And it's like, I think, well, this was for, it just looked too neat, petite, you know, well expensive, and I thought, nah, this was pneumatic trains. It's like, it's wide, but you can put two pneumatic trains together, one going one way, one the other. All they've done is open it up. You know, and I can see that. You know, just by its, you know, it's not. I know, like, there's a video I showed you where you can see the original brick, the arch brick. You know, where they're covering it up.
Yeah.
And that was the. And I'm thinking, well, this is the expensive ring route around London for all the Tartarian, the Hyde Park. And it goes
but this would have linked
every
up.
Station is
See,
like,
they've
whoa.
got rid of Crystal Palace, which would have been probably one of those train stations that had them.
Easy.
And all it is they've just dismantled it all so that we wouldn't realise that it was much older and probably much more magnificent than what we got now.
Like Russian Petersburg Palace, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you should look at the Russian train stations and tubes. They are amazing. They've got chandeliers hanging in theirs. Yeah.
Nice,
Anyway, we're going to finish now, Mickey, because we could go on forever.
I do apologise.
I have got an answer, actually, for this person. Maybe. Mickey found us a map, and it showed where all these bombs had landed in a certain period of time. It was only so many weeks, like less than 6 months or something. And it basically destroyed London. And then it's very difficult when you think, well, why are those houses down below and the roads up here? And, you know, even when we went to Hyde Park, when we met.
Yeah.
Those things were down, they were under road level.
Yeah, sure.
But they weren't when they made them. So you think, well, But then, if they did destroy, because if this map's true, they just destroyed London, but it's probably specific things they were destroying. And maybe the roads had all been blown up. They put in roads higher now to level everything out. Because everything was bombed. Yeah, it might not be right. But I'm just saying it could be an answer. And so they're not really mud floods. They're just to make everything one level. Or maybe London was a bit hilly and they just leveled. It's their way of just making it all look. They made it flat to drive on. Yeah, well, your mind always plays because you just want to know the answers, and Floss is playing hard to get. She's just playing.
She knows.
Yeah. Yeah, she's naughty. But anyway, we're going to finish now, Mickey.
Okay, Karen.
Well, it's just a thought to
Yeah.
why it might have. But it's just all bananas. And there's so much destruction, and you're like, ding, London's okay again quite quickly.
Back the next day.
You know, the roads seem to be quite passable, and you know, I just don't get any of it. It's like a dream.
Yeah.
It's like, you will believe this.
So you have to be there to believe it.
Yeah, anyway, finishing now. Thanks very much to Reader for message, and yeah.
Nice letter.
Thanks, Mickey.
Thanks, Karen.